Did you know most employers expect you to negotiate, yet over 64% of people never do? In fact, in a study by Robert Hall found that 70% of hiring managers are willing to negotiate, but only 39% of job seekers actually try. So that means most people are leaving money on the table without even knowing it. Personally, I've used this exact strategy, tips, and advice to lock in over 5 figures over original offers in my own salary negotiations. And recently, I'm helping my wife prepare for hers using the same script and advice that I'm about to give you. Even if you think you're bad at negotiating, you can still use these steps and advice to walk away with more money, potentially. Because salary negotiation isn't about being perfect, it's about trying. Hi, I'm Jeff, and I first became a data analyst over 13 years ago. Now I work as a business analyst consultant at a Fortune 4 company. Now I'm on a mission to help 10,000 people break into data analytics and secure higher paying jobs. And I want one of them to be you. So hit that subscribe button because I'm here to help you and guide you every step of the way. Okay, let's address the big elephant in the room. The biggest fear that people have when negotiating is, what if they revoke my offer? I get it. My wife told me the same thing. She had the same fears. She wasn't confident in negotiating either. She thought that she'd be bad at it and that she could mess up her chances. But here is the truth. You don't have to be great at negotiating to get a higher salary. You just have to put in effort and try. Because this skill is literally worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and Harvard Business estimated that it could be worth over $500,000 to $1 million over a person's lifetime. That is crazy. And what is crazy too is that as long as you stay professional and reasonable, HR is not going to pull your offer. They expect you to negotiate. So if you're worried about sounding greedy, don't be. Companies actually respect candidates who negotiate because it shows confidence, preparation, and business acumen. Think about it. If you don't negotiate for yourself, how are they going to trust you to negotiate for the company and when things are high pressure and on the line? So I'm going to be going over general guidelines and a script. You don't have to memorize this word for word. And if you're unsure of how to start or just to push back for like a counter offer, just remember these words. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited for the role. I just want to make sure that my compensation aligns with my experience and market standards. Is there any flexibility in that rate? If you forget everything else, just ask, is there any flexibility in the rate? So that's just one of those ways just to get things started if you get nervous and something to fall back on. So just remember that. And then remember that a lot of this is going to be dependent on your research and your preparation. Preparation of knowing how much you're worth, backing that up with the stats and the statistics, and then also having tools in your toolbox to be able to negotiate and have leverage. And when I say leverage, you're not going to I'm leveraging them to get them to give me this higher salary, but you're negotiating and it should come from a collaboration type of standpoint. And when you have different tools, say like another job offer or other job interviews that you're interviewing for, you have more leverage, especially when they like you and you get to this stage of the process. Because once you get to this stage of the process, this means they want to hire you. And you are the top candidate and they want you to fix their problems now. So at that point, you do have more leverage because they want you to start working for them. And if you do have other things like another offer letter, or you actually understand how much you're worth from other companies that you're interviewing with, then you'll be able to negotiate for a higher rate from a company that might not be giving you or matching what rate you want at this moment. So just keep that in mind as well. Let's go through the different scenarios that I went over with my wife on her salary negotiation and what to expect going into this HR interview. She has it next week, literally. And this is how I prepped her. The first step of any great negotiation is going to be step one, which is preparing for the call and then your mindset and your research. Before you step into the conversation, you need to back your salary request with data. One of the things that is also common that people will ask me is how many counter offers does it take to get to your ideal salary, especially if you're not comfortable with negotiation. It helps to understand the general structure of how people negotiate. So here is how the structure usually goes: is they're going to start with your employer's initial offer. They're going to usually set this on the lower end. It could be a lowball offer, so don't show emotion, don't get offended. It's just part of the process. Two, you're going to make your own counter offer. Advice typically online says aim for anywhere from 10% to 20% higher than their offer. I have gone higher than this, just depending on where their lowball offer is. But 10 to 20% could be a good starting point, but adjust this based on your rate and your own salary needs. Then from here, they're going to have their response and they'll make their next counter offer, which is going to be the third part, which they may increase their initial offer by 5 to 10%, but it's still going to be below your current ask. Then you're going to make your second counter offer, you adjust slightly downward, and then you just to keep the conversation going. And then five, you ideally lands to 5 to 10% above their second offer and then close to where your target is. So this is why you need to negotiate and have higher numbers from your ideal number, because they're going to be moving up from their lower offer and then moving up, and then you're going to be coming down from your higher offers coming down. And then you guys are going to meet in the middle to get to where your ideal number is, which is also the number that you're willing to take for the job. This is why we don't negotiate from our goal number first. We start higher so that we can land to the number that we actually want. So these are the numbers that you need to know before negotiating. First, you need to know your ideal rate. This is your dream number that you'd love to get paid for. Then you need your ideal target rate. This is the realistic number you should be aiming for. And then your minimum acceptable rate, which is just the absolute minimum that you're willing to work for, and the lowest you're willing to accept before walking away. Also, most of this is going to be targeted towards the salary, because my wife is more concerned about the salary. You can also negotiate in when things start to stall, negotiate for the overall compensation. So that could be for your PTO, pay time off, flexibility, anything within a work compensation package, you can ideally negotiate for. But for this role and the example I'll be using for my wife, she is just concerned about making more in her salary because it's going to be a per diem role at a hospital. Now we're going to jump into the various salary negotiation scenarios, a script that I wrote for her, and some general guidelines. Again, this is not thorough. This is not like a thorough sales script, but this was more of a negotiating script that she can look to just to get better ideas. It's not going to cover every rebuttal counteroffer that she can have, but it's great for a beginner and to get your feet wet for negotiating. And it still works pretty well because I've used this general structure to get me higher salaries in the past. Step one, or sometimes I like to call this step 1A, is to get them to reveal their salary numbers in range first. So one of the things that they're going to be asking when you get into this conversation is they're going to say, what are your salary expectations, instead of revealing their number. So what you'd like to do is turn their number back on them and turn this question back on them. I'd love to hear more about your budget for this role. What was the range that was allocated for this position? If they avoid answering, you can keep trying again. You can say stuff like I mentioned earlier. I want to ensure that my expectations align with the company's budget. What range was set for this role? I'd like to make sure that we're on the same page. Can you give me an idea of what is budgeted for this position? So those are all just different ways of saying the same thing. And on these applications, there's going to be a wide range that could be offered. And it's going to depend on a lot of things. Your experience, what you bring, how unique you are, the value that they think that you'll be able to deliver to the company, your location, your experience. A lot of that is going to be factored into what they can give you and what they think you're valued at. So usually the lower end, it's going to be usually in the middle that they're going to want to offer you, or usually on the lower end. The highest range is going to be for those people who are extremely senior or the ones that they deem extremely valuable. So to get to the higher end of the range, you have to be able to demonstrate your value and how much you're going to be bringing to the company. So in different roles, if this was a sales role, or if this was like a business development role, or you could justify how much you're going to be, like, the projects that you're going to be working on for the company, you could directly create a data model, you could do a presentation, you can make a report on how much you're going to be delivering to the company's bottom line. For these roles, and for most people, that's not going to be the case. So they're going to go to not revealing their salary range, and they're going to bring it back on you. So if they're not going to reveal the salary range, you go on to the next step. This step is going to be step 1B because it follows the next step. If they won't reveal their salary range, then what I told my wife that she could say is, based on my 9+ years of experience and my LCSW certification. For those that don't know, this is the licensed clinical social worker, which means that she gets a premium on her salary because of this new certification. Market rates for per diem LCSWs in our region, these are going to be competing offers that she could apply for, that she has the experience to match. I believe a fair rate is in the range of $65 to $69 an hour. So 65 to 69 is on the high end of the range for my wife's experience level. This is going to be above what most of her peers are making, but it's not unreasonable. She does know a few people who are making, with the same type of experience, making this amount at this level. So it is a realistic counter still. If they've given the range, she could have also tailored her strategy and response accordingly. But since they refuse, this is where we're going to set, we want to set that negotiate anchor high so that creates room for negotiation. It's just like if they were to open, they would probably set it lower so that there's still room for negotiation. And that brings us to step 2, where it could start from this place, is if they counter or start with a lowball offer. And the offer that we're thinking about would be around $50 to $55. Her response and what we talked about would be, I appreciate the offer. However, based on industry benchmarks and comparable roles, I was expecting something closer to $63 to $65. And then here's why. The range numbers I'd be using here would change depending. If this was the start of the negotiation, I would have her say the number of 65 to 69. That is our higher range and our higher anchor that we want to start with. This is just understanding what your high offer is going to be, then your middle offer, so that you can get to your ideal offer. It's going to usually take 3 steps to get to your ideal offer. Sometimes it can just take 1 or 2. So I just wanted to say that the range of the offers that you're going to be talking about is going to depend on what part of the negotiation you are. But here's the overall idea of this part of the negotiation. I appreciate the offer. However, based on industry benchmarks and comparable roles, I was expecting something closer to 63 to 65. And here's what I found. At a large SoCal hospital, per diem LCSW is making around $65.01 an hour. Comparable open roles at another competing hospital, they set it at $69.21 an hour. And then also checking and verifying this with industry data on Glassdoor and LinkedIn, per diem LCSWs in this area and market are making an average of $60 an hour. Given my 9 years of experience, my LCSW certification, I believe my skills align more with the higher end of that range. Is there any flexibility to adjust for that? There's 2 different directions this can head into. This is going to be next, is step 3A. Counter offer meets your goal. Should you stop here? So if they offer $60 an hour and that's your target, you have 2 choices. You can just accept the goal, stop negotiating, which is your safe option. And if you're happy with it, you can just take it and not stress yourself out. But if you like negotiating, you can continue to negotiate to see if there's still room to optimize your salary. Why would you want to keep going? Because they still might have the budget to go higher, but you won't even know that they were willing to offer you more unless you ask for it. And I've had friends who negotiated higher even though they hit the ideal number, and they were surprised that they're able to get to a higher salary. So it's worth it to keep going if you're comfortable with it. If you're just happy and you don't want to negotiate anymore, like it's stressful for you, then it's fine to just stop here. And then the other way that this could go is that you're going to have to handle subsequent counteroffers. So at this stage, there's going to be a little bit more of a back and forth, maybe a couple times. And here's how to handle that. Just handle it with poise, have your different backups and your different ways of justifying. And this has to be reasonable justifications for why you're worth that salary. And because now you're trying to get to your target range, because you've already negotiated from your higher end ranges, and you showed the data, you would want to have other things that you could pull out. If I was negotiating in person, what I've done in the past was I pulled out a packet of like the data that I had. I made it into like a presentation of like, this is why, this is what is justified for me making this salary. Because if I'm still not getting my target rate, then but I feel like there's still room to negotiate, then that's where this is where like you're getting to like that later stage to see if you can start getting to that target date. One of the things that we talked about was, I appreciate that. Given my experience in LCSW, could we meet at $60 an hour? I have a few more interviews scheduled as well, but I'd be happy to accept this position today. Cancel those if we could just reach $60 an hour. And then at this point of the negotiation, for me, my wife isn't going to be doing this, but what I normally would be doing was I would have other offers and interviews that I could be using as leverage. So what I've said in the past before is I love the role in the team. The only thing that is holding me back is the salary. So I'm stuck between choosing this company and another. And the only thing that that makes me want to go with the other company is just the salary or compensation. And they offered me X. This is only going to work if you actually have an offer and you're willing to walk away from this job. If you could match that, I would gladly accept. So when should you bring up other offers? I save this as my last negotiating tool if we can't get to my ideal number, especially if I was offered a higher rate at a different company, a different interview, then that's what I'm going to be going for. So when they lowball you initially or start, you're not going to mention yet. If they refuse to budge after 1 to 2 counter offers, this is when I would bring it up. And then also, if they offer non-monetary perks instead, you can use another offer to pivot it back to salary or to negotiate a overall higher compensation level. Maybe it'll be around performance bonuses. Maybe it'll be around your PTO package and your seniority. Those things are going to be flexible. So you can always stock options is another thing. You can always think about your overall package instead of just your salary. But for now, my wife is just thinking of salary. So what this shows, it just shows commitment while leveraging competition. You want to not be a dick about when you bring it up. Just talk about how you love the role, but you want to do what's best for your family, especially inside this economy with higher inflations. It's just one of those things where you have to go with a higher salary. If they can match or exceed the offer, you would love that. Always come from a positive perspective. Don't bring this in like you're hardballing them into accepting this offer, because there's still a possibility where their hands are tied by HR, and that is the highest that they can go. And then this last section is for some of my overzealous negotiator. This is just a advice of when to stop negotiating, because sometimes there are some people who can take it a little too far and actually annoy the employer, but it's going to be HR. It's not your actually hiring manager. And they expect this, so it's okay. But here are just some clear signs of when to wrap it up. So when should you stop negotiating? If they say, this is our final offer, and you've already had a back and forth and it shows no flexibility, then that's when you're gonna have to decide. If they start pivoting to non-monetary perks instead of salary, they likely can't go higher than that. If they say this is the highest offer that we can go, there's just gonna be different signs, especially after you've tried, you went through a few of your counter offers, you gave your justifications, you tried to get to your ideal rate, you went through the different steps, then this is gonna be the time where this is likely what you're gonna be getting and you won't have any more room for negotiation. And also, if you've countered more than twice, you're probably at your limit already. At the end, always just say, I appreciate the back and forth, and I think we're close. I'd love to finalize this at X and then move forward. Can we please lock that in? And then that puts the pressure on them to either decide to accept or give their best number to them. And then you'll know, is this the actual final negotiating place? And then they'll give you the number, or they'll stand firm with whatever number that they had. But those are your general structure of how you're going to be negotiating. So hopefully this helped. Let me know in the comments if this helped. You don't need to be great at negotiating. Again, just remember you have to try. So get out there, secure that bag, and then watch this next video on how to maximize your salary and get a raise and get promoted. So check that out here.